But we've got to start with the breaking news, and that is Luis Rubiales has resigned as the president of the Spanish Federation. This is a statement that he made in an interview with Piers Morgan. I'm going to resign because I cannot continue my work. I spoke with my daughters and they know it is not a question about me. They say I have to focus on my dignity and my life. As I say, this is breaking news. Of course, we'll be analysing it more as the week goes on. Be sure to join us. Meanwhile, elsewhere, Germany, of course, lost yesterday 4-1 against Japan. Hansi Flick sacked this morning. He is out. Let's not forget, Germany, of course, will be hosting the Euros next year. For more on this, Stuart Robson is with us. But first, let's hear from Rudi Völler. This is what he has to say. Now us in charge have to act in order to be able to play next year at the Euros and demanding an ambitious role of host that we're hoping to play. That is what German fans rightly expect from us. As I mentioned, Robbo here. But first, Archie Rhind-Tutt in Germany. Where did it all go wrong for Hansi, Archie?
Performances, results, and a chasm between the German public and this national team. Nobody is connecting with them on any level right now, and they are staring down the barrel. If Hansi Flick had been coach for that tournament, it would have been a disaster. And instead, it came a lot earlier last night, the final nails in his coaching coffin as the German national team coach, coming with a horrific display against Japan. And after the fourth goal went in, the commentator said, it's a disaster, it's a humiliation, it's a debacle.
And it's this stubbornness, isn't it, that seems to have been the problem, as Archie mentioned.
Yeah, he doesn't change the system. He's gone with the same set of players quite often, players that are out of form at times, players that aren't athletic enough to play the system that he's playing. And, you know, when he first took over, he was going to play this high-intensity football. They were going to hold a high line, as he did with Bayern Munich when he did so well there. And it hasn't worked for him. And he hasn't got players that I think can play the system particularly well. When you look at that midfield, Gundogan is good going forward, but isn't good defensively. Emre Can, we saw in the first game of the season for Dortmund, is too easy to be counter-attacked at the moment. You know, and Gnabry, Sane, Havertz, they're players that are inconsistent. You know, both for club and country. Havertz has not really done anything at Chelsea, didn't do anything at Arsenal. Gnabry and Sane, on their day, can be great players with great pace. But at the moment, I don't think they play with any consistency.
So who's
Robbo, sorry. Kai Havertz scored the winning goal in a Champions League final for Chelsea. You can't say he did nothing.
He wasn't good enough for Chelsea. That's why they got rid of him, Archie. You can't keep defending players that go to the Premier League from the Bundesliga because you want to say the Bundesliga is such a great league. He hasn't been good enough for Chelsea, and he's not been good enough for Arsenal. That's what you're trying to say. You're trying to say that Havertz was good enough for Chelsea. He wasn't. That's why they've sold him.
He scored the winning goal in a Champions League final.
Over the course of the period he was there, he wasn't good enough. As simple as that. He wasn't good enough. He's gone to Arsenal. The Arsenal fans don't want him in the side. They're booing him at the moment. They don't want him in the team. They can't understand why Arteta is playing the system he's playing to fit Havertz in it. Havertz is struggling at Arsenal at the moment, let me tell you that.
Well, this took a little detour. Archie, who's next? Who's going to be the new coach?
You're looking at Julian Nagelsmann. He's being mentioned. You're looking as well at Oliver Glasner, the Eintracht Frankfurt coach. He's been talked about as well. So I think the dream scenario for them would be Jurgen Klopp, but I think that's a little bit out of reach for them. I wonder whether it would tempt him potentially. But for now, we're going to get Rudi Völler, the sporting director, who will be on the bench again for Germany. You might remember some 19 years ago that was the case as well, and it didn't work out too well. You'll have Hannes Wolf as well, who has been on our ESPN Bundesliga coverage. You might have seen him last. He's also at the DFB right now. And Sandro Wagner, who was a striker at Bayern Munich and for the national team. But 5 years ago, he retired with quite a bang from the national team, saying that they didn't appreciate his critical way of going about things. So it's taken a full circle that he's going to be on the bench and responsible for the managerial decisions that will be taken against France.
If you're Nagelsmann, Ali, do you take this Or do you hang around Dortmund a little bit, considering the start of the season there you've made? What would your preference be, do you think?
Well, I think Julian Nagelsmann was hanging around a little bit this summer, just kind of waiting to see, wait, hold on a second, where are the pieces going to fall and where do I fit in? And this just kind of happened, I wouldn't say out of nowhere, because we have seen the struggles of Germany. And I think Hansi Flick was fortunate to keep his job post-World Cup. And if you were going to back him after the World Cup, then you thought, oh, well, this is a project that you're seeing for the long term, and therefore you're going to back him all the way to the Euros. But it has become an untenable situation, and therefore Julian Nagelsmann is now sitting at home without doing anything, no campaigning whatsoever, nothing necessary on his part, just essentially, basically watching TV and watching the game and saying, oh, my God. I could not be any more fortunate. So he can slide into this position if he wants to. But that's the part that I think tells you and paints a clear picture as to how difficult of a situation right now it is with Germany. In years past, if this had been an option for Julian Nagelsmann, he would have jumped on it right away. But now you look at it and you go, I don't know, because it's not just about now. We're talking about 2018 World Cup was a failure. We're talking about 2022 World Cup was a failure. We're talking about players that, and Stewie was making the point, a lot of these guys are inconsistent. A lot of these guys you can't really trust. A lot of these guys, one day they show like they can be the best player in the world, and then the next day they disappear on you. You don't want them to disappear on you at the Euros in Germany. It feels like it's meant for Julian Nagelsmann. I don't know that this is quite a match as people are making it out to be, because, again, the core of the national team, most of these players do come from the setup of Bayern Munich, where, whether you like it or not, Julian Nagelsmann did not thrive.
Do you think he wants it, Archie?
I think it's harsh to say he didn't thrive, Ali. I get where you're coming from. I think that, let's be honest, looking at what's happened with Bayern Munich in the time since he's gone, his reputation's not really sunk much from then. And as you say, he has been raking in the dough whilst he has been waiting for his next job to come up, and has been able to look at options such as Chelsea and PSG and go, those aren't for me as well, because we know that there were talks on that front. I think that a short-term role at the in the German job would suit him better, because I think that he's somebody who would thrive better with the day-to-day club coaching culture. I'm not sure that that's something that doing the national team job is quite the right thing for him right now. But when it comes to proving a point and actually having power to do things, because Germany are desperate right now for their next coach, I think that would be there. And I think that, look, this is a guy who enjoys doing extreme sports in his spare time. I think risks come pretty naturally to him. So if he sees one that he fancies, he'll jump for it. And being the face, or one of the faces of a home European tournament, is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity, let alone as a coach. So that's why I think maybe it might tickle the fancy of Jurgen Klopp, maybe later down the line in the season if they can't find the big solution now. But for Julian Nagelsmann, he would certainly consider it.
Robbo?
Yes, I'm sure he will consider it, because, you know, the biggest chance you ever have of doing well in a competition is when you're playing on home soil. At the moment, I don't think the team are good enough, and he knows that, and I agree with Ali. He's been with, I don't know why he left Bayern Munich. We don't know whether he fell out with some of those players. But if he fell out with some of those players, he's certainly not going to win them back when he becomes the national manager. But your best chance of doing well in a tournament is when you're playing on home soil, and Germany are playing on home soil, so he might just take it.
I'm not going to get caught up in the semantics of whether he thrived or not in Bayern Munich.
Okay.
But can we agree on underachieved? Can we agree on that? Can we agree that...
Don't drag me into it. I'm just the host, Sally.
No, because...
That's all I do. I don't like to get my opinion involved.
And I didn't bring it up. Archie did. The fact that he liked extreme sports, Julian Nagelsmann. Well... Turns out that he was doing extreme sports while he was getting fired, instead of tending to his work. That's neither here nor there. Why are we going to pay attention to that? That's not important. While the house is on fire, you're over there doing extreme sports. That's a good image to leave.
How many of his team were actually there at the training ground at that point and not on international duty, though.
Okay. Had he just lost a game that he shouldn't have lost and had left the team in a position in which they should not have been? And is it not the responsibility for him to, at the very least, give the image that he's trying to find a solution rather than skiing the slopes, right? I mean, just from perception, it's the wrong message to send. But again, this is neither here nor there. I'm basing my opinion on Julian Nagelsmann not because he's an extreme sports fanatic, but what I see on the field. And what I saw on the field, and this cannot be denied, this cannot be argued, is failure against Villarreal, a mid-table team in Spain, in the latter stages of Champions League. What I saw from Bayern Munich and Julian Nagelsmann it was a team that was struggling to get results with consistency, even though they were by far, in terms of talent, the best team in Bundesliga. So that, from my perspective, from my definition, that's underachieving. And what is the German national team doing right now? Underachieving as well. Those things don't seem to match.
Yeah, Robert, if you look at Flick, obviously much more successful at Bayern than Nagelsmann was. So the question is, why would he get more out of this team than Hansi Flick has?
Well, Hansi Flick, I think, like all coaches, when he went into the German job and he'd done so well at Bayern Munich, playing a certain style of football, you think you can take that on. But you have to develop as a coach. And we just heard Archie talking about him being stubborn and not changing his tactics, not changing the personnel. At some point, you have to have a rethink. If things aren't working, and that's where he hasn't had the rethink, and that's why he struggled. Can Nagelsmann change his style of play if it doesn't quite work? Let's hope he could. He's still a very young manager that hasn't got that great an experience. But if he did take the job, I hope he could be successful.
Well, thank you very much for watching ESPN on YouTube. For more sports highlights and analysis, be sure to download the ESPN app. And for live streaming, premium content, and let's not forget as well, ESPN FC 7 days a week. Subscribe to ESPN+.